In Module 4, we're going to talk about the anatomy of the penis. What is a penis? What are testes? What is semen? What is ejaculation? And what is the difference between having a circumcised penis or having a penis with foreskin? We'll also touch upon intersex bodies and other types of genitalia that people might have. Now let's talk about anatomy for people with penises. What you see on the outside, this part right here, is the penis itself. And hanging under this part is the scrotum, which colloquially people might call balls. And like I said before, remember that you should call your genitalia whatever feels right for you. I'm going to be using a lot of medical terminology, which honestly no one uses in their day-to-day life generally. So as we think about this, now what you're looking at in this diagram is just one representation of what a penis might look like. There's a few things to remember here. Penises also come in many different shapes, sizes, colors. There's hair that grows in this area. And as we're thinking of shapes and sizes, there's a lot of popular culture conversation about a bigger penis is better. And we'll talk more about why that's not always necessarily true. So penises can be of various lengths. They can be of various widths. They can also have a foreskin or not have a foreskin. So if you look at this image here, you'll see that there's one version of the penis that grows with a layer of skin on the outside, and for some people that layer of skin is removed. Now often there's no pros and cons to removing or not removing the foreskin. It's a choice that's made at birth very often for people because of various reasons like religious reasons, cultural reasons, could also be medical reasons. Some people end up also getting it later in life, could be also for aesthetic reasons. There's no health benefits, there's no pleasure benefits, there's also no pleasure or health cons per se. So in terms of functionality, whether or not you have a foreskin, it works the same way. And a lot of ideas about how a penis might look or not look is defined by our cultural conversations and values. And now let's think about how some of this works. So if I were to look internally into the anatomy of the penis and the scrotum, I'm going to start our story with the testes. Now the testes are the organs which produce the sperm cell. Now the sperm cell is the sex cell which, if you remember from our uterus conversation, travels up and tries to meet the egg cell. The sperm cell is produced in the testes and stored there. And when someone with a penis ejaculates, it travels up these tubes through the penis and then comes out in the form of a whitish fluid. A lot of people tend to think that the whitish fluid that comes out is entirely made up of sperm cells, but that's actually not true. Along the route, as it's traveling through these tubes, there's a few other glands that it meets along the way, such as the seminal vesicles or the prostate glands, and these glands add in other types of fluids which are really important to making the sperm function, at least from a reproductive point of view. And so those glands add fluids, they'll add starches, they'll add things that make the sperm move more easily. And so when someone ejaculates, they release a white fluid that contains all of these various things added from all these glands as well as sperm cells. Now, unlike the uterus, where there was a periodic cycle, where there's an egg release and the whole menstrual cycle happens, in the case of testes, there's no periodic cycle like that. It happens, the sperm cells are released and all these fluids are added in, and the ejaculation happens in a few different situations. One of them is in cases of sexual arousal, one of them is any type of physical stimulation, particularly to the penis, or it could also be involuntary in cases like nocturnal emissions or wet dreams when someone is sleeping. And so all of these situations leads to sperm cells getting released from the testes, traveling up the tubes, having all those fluids added in, and then releasing through the penis. Now, again, unlike the vaginal opening, where the vagina and the urethra was two separate things, in the case of the penis, the opening is the same. So the urethra connects to the testes, but it also connects to the urinary bladder. And so it's the same opening that all those fluids pass through. As we're talking about fluids that pass through the penis, we also want to think about a fluid that's released before ejaculation. So ejaculation is what typically contains the sperm and is whitish in color and might be thick in consistency, could vary from person to person, could also vary in general. But there's a fluid that's released before that, which is more transparent in color, and that usually provides lubrication. From a reproductive standpoint, it's for lubrication during, say, penis and vagina intercourse, but from a general life standpoint, it could be useful for pleasure. It could also just be something that is released. That also can contain sperm cells sometimes, and so that's something to keep in mind as we're thinking about methods for contraception and using things like barrier methods or trying to prevent pregnancy.